Make me laugh and I'll date you, my boss said, but she smiled before I could speak the moment my boss looked into my eyes and casually said, "Make me laugh and I'll date you." I felt my heart stop. I had spent 2 years hiding my feelings behind spreadsheets, meetings, and polite smiles, but before I could think of a single joke, before I could even breathe, she smiled first, and in that smile I realized this had never been about making her laugh at all. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, hope, forgiveness, compassion, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue sharing meaningful stories that remind us how powerful simple acts of kindness can be. My name is Nathan, and I lived in Charleston, South Carolina. At 34, my life looked stable from the outside. I worked as a financial analyst for a growing family-owned construction company, paid my bills on time, and never caused trouble. But after losing my father to a long illness a few years earlier, I had become quiet. I laughed less, trusted fewer people, and buried myself in work because it hurt less than facing an empty apartment every evening. My boss, Rachel, was completely different. She was confident without being arrogant, successful without making anyone feel small, and she somehow remembered the birthdays of every employee. The company wasn't just her business, it was her father's dream, and after his retirement she carried it with incredible grace. Everyone admired her, but very few knew how lonely she really was. I only discovered that by accident. One rainy evening, I stayed late to finish an important report. As I walked past the conference room, I noticed Rachel sitting alone in the dark, staring at an old photograph. She quickly wiped away a tear before noticing me. Instead of pretending I hadn't seen anything, I simply placed a cup of fresh coffee beside her and quietly wished her a peaceful evening before leaving. The next morning, nothing was mentioned, but something changed. She started asking me to join meetings that had nothing to do with my department. She invited me to lunch with clients. She asked about my mother, my hobbies, and what books I like to read. Little by little, our conversations became less about work and more about life. One afternoon, after we successfully completed the company's biggest contract of the year, the office celebrated with a small gathering. Everyone was relaxed for the first time in months. Rachel looked across the room, caught me watching everyone laugh together, and walked over with a playful grin. That was when she said those unforgettable words, "Make me laugh, and I'll date you." My mind went completely blank. I had rehearsed hundreds of conversations in my imagination over the past year, but never this one. Every joke I had ever heard disappeared from my memory. My hands became cold, and I was certain I was about to embarrass myself in front of everyone. Yet before I could force out a single word, Rachel started laughing herself. Not because I had said something funny, because the terrified expression on my face reminded her, she later admitted, that even confident people carry invisible fears. The room filled with laughter, including mine. For the first time in years, it wasn't forced. A few days later, she invited me to take a walk along the Charleston waterfront after work. Without pressure or expectations, we talked honestly. She confessed that after losing her mother, she had buried herself in work just as I had after losing my father. Success had surrounded her with people, but very few genuine friends. She wasn't looking for someone perfect. She was looking for someone kind enough to stay when life stopped being easy. Those words stayed with me. Dating Rachel wasn't the fairy tale people imagined. Rumors spread through the office. Some believed I was only interested in her position. Others assumed she favored me because of our relationship. The gossip hurt both of us more than we admitted. Instead of arguing with anyone, we chose patience. Rachel transferred my reporting structure to another executive to remove any conflict of interest. I worked even harder than before, refusing promotions I hadn't earned. Over time, people stopped paying attention to the rumors and started noticing the results. Respect slowly replaced suspicion. The greatest surprise came months later when Rachel suggested we create a scholarship program honoring both of our parents. Every year, students from hardworking families who dreamed of attending college would receive financial support from the company. Standing beside those young graduates during the first scholarship ceremony, I realized something remarkable. The happiest moment of my life wasn't our first date. It wasn't when we held hands for the first time. It wasn't even when I later proposed beneath the same oak tree where we often shared quiet conversations. It was watching complete strangers receive opportunities because two people had chosen kindness over fear. If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who still believes that compassion can change lives. Your support allows more stories like this to reach people who may need hope today. Before this story comes to an end, I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment and tell us, do you believe the strongest relationships begin with laughter or with kindness? Your thoughts may encourage someone reading through the comments. Years later, people still asked Rachel whether I had ever finally told the joke she had been waiting to hear. She would simply smile, squeeze my hand, and say that the funniest thing wasn't a joke at all. It was watching a quiet man spend 2 years believing he needed the perfect punchline, when all she had ever hoped to hear was the honesty in his heart. And that day taught me something I will never forget. The deepest love doesn't begin with flawless words. It begins the moment two imperfect people choose to make each other's burdens a little lighter, one genuine smile at a time.